The CEOs of Facebook and Twitter faced more harsh questions today over their company's actions around the 2020 presidential election. Last month, you may remember, the two tech leaders committed to aggressively guarding their platforms from misinformation. And today, senators grilled them over their election measures. Tech expert Ryan Eldridge of Nerds on Call joins me now live this afternoon to break down today's hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Thank you so much, Ryan, for being here. The central question is, did these measures have a meaningful impact? So, did they?
Well, that's the thing, is nobody really knows. Both Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey said they think so, but they weren't exactly clear. They said they're still studying that information. So they were hauled before Congress to answer that simple question: is how did these companies handle the security of the 2020 election? And they weren't able to answer that. And this is the second time in 3 weeks that they've been hauled before Congress. This time, though, instead of just sticking to that topic, a lot of the Congress people were more interested in things like tech addiction, the encryption, antitrust, and content moderation. There's sort of a split in Congress right now, specifically about what these two were going to testify about. The Democrats were thinking, hey, we want to find out exactly what you're doing to stop misinformation and stopping this from spreading everywhere. And the Republicans are more about, hey, there's an anti-conservative bias on your networks, and we want you to be able to fix that. And this all kind of came out of the fact that both companies limited the spread of a New York Post article that was suggesting some unproven claims about President-elect Joe Biden's son. And so by limiting that, it kind of made people think, hey, wait, this isn't protection under Section 230, where you're allowed to say whatever or people are allowed to post whatever they want on your networks and say whatever they want to say, and you get to enjoy liability protection from that. Once you limited the expanse of this particular post published by another person or a company, that suddenly made you a publisher. And so the conservatives are saying, hey, if you're going to be limiting the reach of these posts and who they can go to, that's a problem for us. And we don't think you should be allowed to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned that there was a lot of debate today about whether these social media giants should be considered publishers. What type of difference would that categorization make?
Well, if they suddenly change Section 230 to hold Facebook and Twitter or any social media liable for something another user posts on the page, that will dramatically change the landscape of how social media takes place. You can forget about instant information or free exchange of ideas. You're going to get moderation, and it could really impact the bottom line of both companies. What both companies, Zuckerberg and Dorsey, are both asking for is maybe some additions to Section 230, update it, make sure that it is working in the sense that it's supposed to be working or the way that it's intended. Unfortunately, I think that both companies, and I've said it before, and it's not the nicest thing to say, but I think they're both being really cowardly, because both companies absolutely could handle these problems on their own. But they're asking for Congress, who frankly is not prepared to handle the technology or anything else that's moving too fast for them. They're not going to be able to regulate this appropriately. And really what Zuckerberg and Dorsey need to do is step up and say, hey, you know what? We're going to make our own rules, and we're going to then apply that across the tech industry and see voluntarily who's going to go for this. And then Congress then can adopt those rules as laws or regulations. They're instead trying to let Congress make those rules, and they're just not equipped for it. You can tell by the questions they were asking, how they were trying to get around they just don't understand. And you can't have someone who doesn't understand the technology regulated appropriately. So I think that, unfortunately, the Dorsey and Zuckerberg, like I said, I think they're just being cowardly. I think they could easily handle this problem on their own.
Yeah, but the solution that you're mentioning, it really doesn't seem very, very likely, Ryan.
It isn't likely, because both of them want to have a level playing field. They don't want to institute regulations or restrictions on their own platform that then someone else can take advantage of on another platform. I'll give you an example. So Zuckerberg was directly asked about a post by Steve Bannon, one of the President Trump's former allies and confidants. He posted a post on Facebook calling for the beheading of Dr. Fauci and the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray. And they basically asked, hey, are you going to take that down? And Zuckerberg's like, no, it doesn't really, apply to our policies. And that seemed crazy. But on the other hand, if you're going for a platform that is non-moderated and doesn't suppress any speech at all, people will be able to say things like that. And we know that social media has got a quite a big hand in how the world views media. And this kind of call to action could be really dangerous, not just for Zuckerberg and for Dorsey, but for Dr. Fauci, frankly.
Yeah, it is a tricky balance, as you point out, and I'm sure that those tech CEOs will be called back to Capitol Hill virtually in the time being to find out more about what they're going to be doing and their plans in the future. Really appreciate it. Ryan Eldridge of Nerds on Call. Thanks so much.